Hello, my name is Ani Altamirano. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Empowering Teachers Worldwide. A few days ago, I talked about differentiated instruction, what it is and what it is not. Today, I would like to go a little deeper into that, and I would like to talk about differentiating some aspects of what we do in the classroom. So, at the heart of classroom practice, of the classroom practice of differentiation, is the modification of three key curriculum-related elements: content, process, and product, which can and frequently are used in combination and alongside other techniques. But for this time, let's focus on the first step, and that is differentiating content. Now, content is what students need to know, to understand, or do something with. And differentiated content is perhaps the most frequently used and possibly the easiest form of differentiation. Now, there are two ways in which we can think about differentiating content: adapting what we teach or what we want the students to learn, or adapting how we give students access to what we teach or to what we want them to learn. However, we should remember that even if we are given different learners, different resources at different levels of complexity, they will all be working towards the same learning outcome. This is extremely important. Now, before deciding how we are going to differentiate the content, we need to identify the specific skills and the concepts that students must achieve. And we can get this measured and analyzed through a variety of assessments. For example, you can use strategies like the KWL chart. And this is one simple way in which we can find out what learners already know about a topic. Now, some time ago, some months ago, I posted a video about my favorite activity. And in that video, I explained that we can use this chart also as an assessment tool, both at the beginning and at the end of the lesson. Now, at the beginning of the lesson, what you can do is this. You draw a 3-column table on a large sheet of poster paper or on the board. I prefer to do it on a large sheet of paper because I can always put that aside and then bring it back to the front of the classroom at the end of the lesson. So you create here 3 columns. The K column will be what I know. The W column is what I want to know. And the L column is what I learned. So at the beginning of the lesson, ask learners to write what they know or they think they know about a topic. And they write that in the first column, in the K column. In the second column, the W column, they will write what they would like to know about the topic in the form of questions. And at the end of the lesson or at the end of the unit, we will review the questions that they have written in the W column and ask learners to add statements to the L column, what they have learned. Now, are there any questions that remained unanswered? Thinking back on the information they have learned, can they predict what the answers might be? This is really very useful, and we can improve that with older or more advanced students, adding a second layer to the chart. I learned this from my colleague, Gabriel Diaz-Maggioli, who is the current president of IATEFL. So you add this second layer. We have them reflect and say what they know about the topic or they think they know, and then how they learn this. How did we learn this? This is an important extension because students become aware of how they learned the information, and so they realize where learning opportunities lie. And it could be because somebody in the group shared information, they remember seeing the information somewhere, they read it, they watched a film, whatever. Now, to the question, what do we want to learn? Is how do we want to learn? So this gives you valuable information about what works and what doesn't work for your students in terms of the procedural aspects of learning. And then at the end of the lesson or at the end of a particular learning cycle, you can ask the students what they have learned about this topic, and they reflect and write it down at the same time they create questions. So they use the questions, they challenge other groups with questions. And so you can spend the last 5 minutes of the class having groups bouncing questions at each other. So once we have determined the learner's level of understanding of the content, we use this information to plan how the content needs to be differentiated. And you can do this in different ways. You can present the content in different ways, for example, using graphic organizers, diagrams, timelines, flowcharts, dividing longer texts into manageable chunks, be it a reading text or a listening text, adapting the text. Many a time we ask ourselves if the materials that we are using, especially if we are choosing supplementary materials, are at an appropriate level of complexity, and we need to make adjustments accordingly. So this may mean simplifying the text to eliminate any unnecessary vocabulary, using simpler language, making it more challenging. There are online tools that you can use and that will help you check the level of the text and adapt it. I will share the references with you at the end. Now, you can also use a variety of texts and resource materials, not just the book. You can also build a class library from texts at various levels, magazines, newsletters, brochures, other print material, useful websites, podcasts, CDs, DVDs, etc. You can also provide students with scaffolding cards, with sentence starters or stems for writing and speaking tasks. And these can be generated by you or by the students working in pairs or in small groups. For example, if the learners need to discuss as a class or in groups, you can provide them with useful phrases that they can use to express opinions, to ask for clarification, to disagree politely. In reading and listening tasks, you can turn the answer the question exercise into a more stepped task. For example, a true-false, a multiple choice exercise, tick the items that are mentioned, complete sentences, etc. You can also use note-taking organizers. These are particularly useful to organize ideas when doing a writing task or preparing a presentation. Another possibility is using stepped tasks, that is, tasks that contain a series of separate elements, the difficulty of which gradually increases, and all learners will be challenged. For example, using worksheets at different levels. You categorize the worksheets according to the level of difficulty, and you have A, for example, which has the most support. It's the least challenging. Then you have worksheet B, which is somewhere in between B and C, as you will see. That is, there is some support. And then you have worksheet C, that is the most challenging without any support. That is, in this case, as you can see, it's not about giving the less confident students simpler or easier work, but about making the content and the work more accessible to those who need more support. You can also increase the complexity of tasks. For example, you can make them more interesting or challenging For example, if you're doing a piece of writing, the complexity might build in terms of the number of words used, the length of the words used, the complexity of the thinking behind the vocabulary used, the punctuation, the complexity of the sentence types, and the amount of development of ideas. Now, there are lots of ways in which you can vary this complexity. Also, you can vary the complexity by changing the sophistication of the research required to do the task, how open-ended the question being asked is, the perspectives and the viewpoints you ask the learners to adopt, the amount of inference required to do the work, the level of abstraction of concepts, or the amount of detail to be included in response to a question. Now, I mentioned before the tools that you can use in order to check the level of the vocabulary. These are 3 tools that I usually use. They are free and they are really useful because you copy and paste a piece of text and the tool will immediately tell you the level of the vocabulary and give you alternatives. Okay, so this is all for today. If you want to contact me, here's my email address. You can find me on LinkedIn and follow me in this YouTube channel. Bye.